Fruit trees don't grow alone in nature, so why would you plant them that way at home? These plants right here are secretly doing a ton of work for my edible garden. So come walk around my backyard with me, and I'm going to show you all of the companion plants I actually use to support my fruit garden. Let's start by talking about what companion planting is, but also what it isn't. So companion planting is not a one-to-one diagnosis and cure. You know, I'm having this pest, so I plant this plant, and there you go, problem solved, the pest is gone. I really wish it was that simple. I wish it was how that worked, but it's not. Instead, think of companion planting as a part of creating a whole ecosystem. You want to plant plants that work together as a team to provide benefits for the whole. What are some of those benefits, you might ask? Well, it's a lot of things. You can repel pests with companion planting. You can attract beneficial insects. So those would be things that are either predatory to the pests or things like pollinators, those bees and butterflies and wasps and things that pollinate the flowers. You can improve the health of the soil. Certain plants help build nutrients in the soil or can break up compacted soil. Companions can act as a bit of a living mulch to retain moisture and to protect the root system of a fruit tree, for example. And together, all of these things are going to add to the biodiversity. So that means a more productive fruit tree or plant, since that's what we're talking about. And it also means less work for you, the gardener. Companion planting has been around basically since humanity has been doing agriculture. Specifically here in America, indigenous people were using companion plants to grow better. A famous one is called the Three Sisters, where you grow corn, beans, and squash together for various benefits. So this is nothing new. Here I'm sitting right by my peach trees, where just a few weeks ago I planted what's called a fruit tree guild, which is a permaculture design principle that uses companion plants specifically chosen around a fruit tree to provide it those specific benefits. So if you want to check that out, I will link to that video right here so that you can see it. And the thing is, though, you don't need some sort of specialized knowledge in permaculture to get started, but you do need to know which plants to choose. This is one of my favorite pest control companion plants. I'm talking about chives. And in this category also are any allium, so chives, onions, garlic, leeks, things like that. But I specifically have chives planted all over my garden. Chives are great. They hit basically all the categories. For one thing, they're great at repelling pests. All of those alliums are because of their strong scent. They keep things away like aphids and spider mites, both of which can be a real issue around fruiting plants. But they also, when they bloom, they will attract those pollinators and beneficial insects. To top it all off, they can even be used, if you have enough of them, if you grow them in a mass, it can be used as a ground cover. So that's going to keep the soil cooler, it's going to insulate it, it's going to help retain moisture. And then you can essentially mow it. You can chop and drop. You can chop off, the grass, if you will, as it grows and spread it around as a mulch. And that's just going to help add organic material to the soil and make the soil healthier. So chives really have it all. They're super versatile, and I started growing them mostly to use as a culinary plant and to use in my kitchen, but now I can't get enough of them. Now, admittedly, one little chive plant like this next to a big fruit tree is not going to do a whole lot. I have them scattered around, and my plan is to continue to mass them as time grows. I'm going to plant some from seed next year. Chives really are so versatile as companion plants, but if you want to know a true garden superstar, check out this next one. Next up, we have Comfrey, a multitasking marvel of a companion plant. For one thing, Comfrey is one of what's called dynamic accumulators, and that is just a way to say that it has a really deep taproot, and that taproot will take nutrients from the soil and sort of store it in its plant tissue. So what you can then do is, once this plant grows nice and big and full and bushy, a few times a season you can chop and drop. You can chop it down and spread out the leaves as mulch and to be incorporated into the soil, so all those good nutrients get moved back to the soil and just make it that much more rich and wonderful. And then the plant will regrow and the cycle continues. They also, like I just said, they make a great mulch, a really helpful, beneficial mulch, not only to do what mulch does to protect the soil, but to also enhance the soil. They bloom, so they're going to attract pollinators too when they're blooming. And just overall, it's a super helpful plant. It is a medicinal plant. Now, admittedly, this is not my area of expertise, so you're going to want to go to another source to confirm all of the ways that you can use comfrey. But I do know it is an extremely useful, versatile, and beautiful plant. Now, planter beware, because comfrey is also notorious for spreading like mad. If you plant one small root cutting, it can just like take over a whole area. But there is one variety that I know of that is sterile, and that's this one. It's called Bocking 14. So if you want your plant to stay in a nice polite mound, then that's the kind of comfrey you're going to want to look for. Next, let me show you my prettiest pest control plant. I'm talking about marigolds. Marigolds are so great at repelling pests, especially root knot nematodes, which are a soil-borne organism that can cause havoc on all sorts of plants. But they can repel other pests as well because of their strong smell. They also can help attract beneficial insects and pollinators. Now, I do find that, for me at least in my climate, they bloom later than my fruit trees and plants, so they don't specifically help pollinate my fruit plants, but I still love them in my vegetable garden to help pollinate other things. They're beautiful, they're annual, they're very easy to grow, and you may notice that I'm sitting in kind of an awkward position. Well, that's because this is the only blooming marigold I have left, because I have a rabbit friend who's decided to take up residence and eat all of my marigolds. But rabbits aside, they're very easy to grow. There are different varieties of marigolds, some of which are more beneficial than others. So the best ones I would say for companions are probably French marigolds, because they have the strongest scent. So you're going to get the most of those pest repelling benefits. But African marigolds are also great, still the same benefits, even if they're slightly less strongly scented. Those are the ones that I grow most of, just because it's hot here, and those are going to be more heat and drought tolerant. Marigolds are awesome with their strong smell at repelling pests, but they're not the only companion plants that do that. One of the things I love about these strong smelling herbs, like here I have rosemary and sage. I have a small bit of savory started back here. Other ones are lavender, thyme, oregano, even mint, which I grow in a container because otherwise it will take over everything. But what I love about these strong smelling herbs is that they can help repel pests the same way that marigolds do with their strong smell. It sort of confuses the insects. But even more than that, they can specifically help repel fruit flies, which, if you grow fruit trees, can be a real issue around fruit trees and berry plants and things like that. So I love having these big shrubs right around my persimmon tree, and I have a fig tree over here. I've got some blueberry bushes right there. They also love sun, which of course fruit trees need, and they're not very needy in terms of water, so they're not going to compete with the trees in terms of moisture in the soil. So great all-around plants. Definitely recommend using them as companions. They even, when they bloom, will attract those pollinators that we've been talking about. Now, I love using these in my kitchen. I love how they look in my garden, and I even love that they can help out with the pollinators. But there's a few plants that I grow specifically for the pollinators, so let's talk about those. Let's talk flowers. Now, technically, you could say that basically any flowering plant is probably going to attract pollinators. But specifically, I'm going to talk about native flowering plants to help support your local ecosystem. Now, this is going to vary region to region, but some of the ones for my area in Texas, and probably a large part of the United States, are things like salvia, which you see here next to me, Turk's cap, coreopsis, coneflowers, bee balm, so many others, but those are some of the ones that I grow. So you want to aim for having pollinating plants that bloom off and on throughout the season to just help support pollinators in general and those beneficial insects that we've been talking about. But as far as fruit plants go, pay attention to when your fruit trees and plants bloom, because you want to make sure you have things in the vicinity that are blooming at the same time, that are going to bring pollinators to the area that'll hopefully pollinate your fruit tree even better. Most fruit plants are not just pollinated by one type of insect. They're pollinated by a variety of insects like bees, butterflies, wasps, even the wind, although nothing we plant is going to help the wind. But you want to aim to have a variety of things that are going to appeal to a variety of different pollinating insects and creatures. Now, obviously, flowers are probably one of my favorite categories because that's what adds beauty to any garden. But there's another category I love, and that's the companion plants that do double duty. These are the plants that are not only great companions for fruit trees, but also for you, because they also provide fruit. So I'm talking about things like strawberries. Strawberries are a fantastic companion plant, especially for fruit trees, because of the way that they spread by runners. And so you can plant a few and they will spread all out and work as a really great living mulch that will help protect the soil, keep it insulated, keep it cool. They also will flower, often at the same time as other fruit trees. So again, great for attracting those pollinator bugs. And then of course you get to pick strawberries all throughout the summer. Other great fruiting options are low-growing berry bushes. So these are going to be things like gooseberries or currants if you live up north. In my case, blueberries are great, especially if you can get a dwarf variety, or even blackberries, depending on the variety you choose and how big they're going to get. But these are great because, again, the blooms happen around the same time, so they're going to support each other as pollinators. They also need a similar environment, and it's just a great space-saving way to maximize the space around your fruit trees. I wouldn't plant them too close because you don't want the roots to compete for nutrients and water, but in the same general area, it can be a really great part of this little ecosystem you're creating. Finally, fruit trees themselves can be a really good companion. So especially things that are dwarf and stay really small, like some fig trees, although this guy's getting pretty big, but things that are going to stay under the canopy of larger trees. Again, we're creating layers. This is that idea of a food forest, where in the same area, you're growing things at different layers that provide benefits for each other and then provide food for you. There's so many other great plants I could talk about that I have in my garden. I could go on. This video is long enough. The takeaway really is there's no one right way to do companion planting. It's all about looking around and observing what works for your garden, your climate, your specific trees, and what do you like? Choose a couple of your favorite plant buddies, especially ones from this video, and then go from there. See how your trees respond. And hey, I'd also love to hear about what are some of the things that you're growing with your fruit trees. Drop it in the comments. Hey, I'm still learning too. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.